This is a will he, won't he? Will he, won't he? Will he quit? Will he stay in? Will he stay in the race or will he drop out? So there's been some breaking news about this story about whether Joe Biden is going to stay in the race or he's going to name a successor. Now, chances are he's probably not going to name Kamala, or he's open to the idea of a Democratic convention. So first, let's at least get with the fresh out the oven update, because apparently President Biden's campaign chair, Jen O'Malley Dillon, says Biden is not exiting the presidential race. Absolutely, the president is in this race. You've heard him say that time and time again. He is the best person to take on Donald Trump. So who do we have here? We have our friends at Morning Blow, who seem to be living in their own reality. By the way, you know, Mika, Joe, watch how you talk to people. Watch how you talk to people, especially your handlers. All right. Me and Nico were ripping you guys a new one yesterday, because you don't bite the hand that feeds you. Don't you talk about quitting, because you are replaceable.
Joining us now, chair of the Biden-Harris campaign, Jen O'Malley Dillon. Jen, thank you for being on. So what is the plan?
Now, I know this is going to sound completely petty and there's no analysis or perspective, but why does she look like how I would imagine her to look like? I mean, seriously, it just already, I could smell the liberal smugness coming from my screen.
Plan. Is Joe Biden still in the race? Does he plan to stay in the race? And if so, what's the plan?
Thanks so much for having me, Mika. And look, absolutely the president's in this race. You've heard him say that time and time again. And I think we saw on display last night exactly why, because Donald Trump is not going to offer anything new to the American people. He's the same person he was in 2020. He's the same person he was at the debate stage. He's the same person he is that is about himself and not about the American people. And Joe Biden is more committed than ever to beat Donald Trump. And we believe on this campaign, we are built for the close election that we are in, and we see the path forward. The president is the leader of our.
Really? Do you believe anything that this woman is saying? Because it's clear to me, and it should be clear to all of you watching, that this is a person who's lying and living in her own reality. We'll return back to that video, because look, when you have stuff like this, Biden confused this lady for being Jill. Now I have this on mute because look, there's Jill. It's like, whoa, I got two wives. And she's like, look, right there. That look right there of, huh, okay. Hey, thanks for the save, Jill. Look, again, man is completely confused. Man doesn't know where he's at. He's lost in the sauce. For a minute there, probably thought he had two wives, you know, but that's Joe Biden.
Campaign and of the country, and he is clearly, in our impression and what we've built and in our engagement with voters, he is the best person to take on Donald Trump and prosecute that case and present his vision versus what we saw last night.
So let's talk about last night. No, seriously, let's talk about last night. This is from Hotspot, from Newsmax, where, look, folks, people are giving us two different stories. And originally, the story was going to be one thing about how Joe Biden could potentially step down. But this morning, you get another report from the Biden-Harris administration, or at least from the Biden part of the camp, that he's going to stay in the race. But then you hear from last night how there's talk about Joe Biden supposedly being open and willing to endorse an open convention in Chicago, and not Vice President Kamala the Cop Harris. So let's go ahead and bring up this video here.
Carl, according to multiple Democratic sources, this is happening all of a sudden. Everyone said it would happen gradually and then all at once, and that's what's happening. According to my sources, President Biden has agreed to step down as the Democratic nominee.
Oh, man.
It will happen as early as this weekend. A speech has been drafted for him. He will continue on as president, is his intention. He also will not, I'm told, endorse Vice President Harris as his successor. They're hoping that he will endorse an open process in which the convention will be open to Vice President Harris and a few other candidates in Chicago to pick the Democratic nominee for president. The belief is that Vice President Harris is already looking at potential running mates to go to Chicago with a full ticket including one possibility, Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, and perhaps the governor of Pennsylvania, Governor Shapiro. Other possible candidates.
Now, I'm going to be playing and showing a few other articles here because we're getting conflicting information. Maybe we will know the full answer this weekend, and if that's the case, we'll probably hear it either Saturday or Sunday, what the final truth is. But Democrats, this doesn't do you any favors because now your voting base is confused and potential supporters are also confused. Okay, because again, a vast majority of Americans identify themselves as independents. 50% of the population identifies itself as independent or non-affiliate, non-voters. Now, to be clear here, Trump seems to be gaining a lot of momentum, and those who wouldn't vote seem to be inspired and enthusiastic to support Trump. Let's be clear about that. There's also growing support for third parties. Now, the big question mark here is what's going on, Democrats, because you're not giving your supporters or potential supporters a true and clear answer, which is, what are you prepared to do to share with your voting base what your overall plan is? Because Biden didn't do himself any favors with his debate against Trump, or his interview with George Snuffleupagus, or his big boy press event, or anything else that came after. He is his own worst enemy, and it's abundantly clear that there is something mentally and physically wrong with Joe Biden. But this is what happens when you have a Democratic Party that is living in its own reality.
Who are being talked about include Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, perhaps Gretchen Whitmer, and again, the vice president running. On the first ballot, the regular delegates would be allowed to vote under this agreement that's being talked about amongst the president and high-level Democrat officials. The regular delegates would vote on the first ballot. If there is no winner on the first ballot, the so-called super delegates would be allowed to vote on the subsequent ballot. This decision was reached, I'm told, all of a sudden because of the high-level pressure from Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, and others, and as well as the decision of many of President Biden's top aides that there was no path forward for him, that he would not be able to win this election, win the general election, and therefore he's stepping aside again as early as this weekend.
So,
will he or won't he? Because a video I played earlier was on Morning Blow saying that he is in the race. This is confusion. Now, perhaps it's a tactic, but it's the dumbest tactic I've ever seen. Because no matter what path the Democrats choose, either Biden drops out, supporting an open convention. Here's the problem with that. Let's say Kamala's not the successor, and the Democrats now have to pick somebody. Who is willing to put themselves on the altar to potentially challenge Donald Trump? In 3 months, how are you going to do that? What are your tactics? What are your plans? And even if they do keep him, well, then great. You have a senile old goat. No matter what's going to happen, Democrats and liberals, you will be in the fight for your lives. And I feast upon your panic like eating a nice bloody steak because it's just that delicious.
Mark, what are the political ramifications for a party that based much of their platform on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they're passing right over Kamala Harris, and he's not going to be endorsing her, according to your sources?
Now, according to my sources, he will say very nice things about her. They do not want what some of my sources have been calling a Kamala coronation. That the problem, in part, that they found themselves in was that President Biden was not seriously challenged for the nomination. I'm told by some of her people, I don't know that the vice president thinks this, but some of her people believe she will win this, that she'll choose a strong running mate, that she does have the support of many of the delegates who are Biden-Harris delegates, and that she can win this basically on her own. And at least one of her allies said to me, this is better. Better to not be anointed by Joe Biden, better to show independence, better to show with a strong ticket the capacity to win the nomination on her own.
Well, Mark, that said, though, you're very familiar with campaign finance laws. He has, 200 and 300 million in his war chest right now. I believe, in my understanding, is Kamala would be the only one who could absorb that and continue on the campaign. How's that going to work when all their big pocket donors have already pushed for that?
So I want to pull up another video here because this also came out today as well. Resentment from the administration, resentment and anger by the press, resentment and anger for all the people leaving Biden.
How do you assess from your reporting the state of play as we wake up today? It's a great question, and I would assess it this way. We've been covering the story for literally 3 weeks now, 3 weeks today, and all of us have had conversations with allies and aides to the president inside the White House, the campaign, close to the White House, and the campaign. And yesterday, those conversations were a little bit different in the sense that some of the people that I have talked to and some of my colleagues have talked to over the last 3 weeks who were really intent that the president was in this, that there was a path ahead and they were plowing forward, changed their tune a little bit. And to that point, to saying we are close to the end, the writing is on the wall. Those were the kinds of things that you're hearing from people who are close to the president. It's because of a number of things that we've been talking about, the erosion of support, both from top, very public Democrats and in the polling, the money that's drying up, that 25%, that projection that the campaign is going to raise 25% of what it had originally projected for the month of July. That's down from last week when they thought it would be 50% of that. So it's not going up, it's going down. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. And so we also know from our own reporting that's factored into this is that the president privately is a little more open to considering stepping aside. We have reported that his conversations in the past week have become, quote, reality based. There's discussion about what his place in history might look like, things like that. Just the tone and the tenor of those conversations are kind of changing. And at the same time, this is his decision, and everybody is clear about that. And
speaking of the decision, let's talk about the decision right here, because we're hearing there's so much confusion here. And listen, perception drives reality. And many voters are not impressed by the actions of the Biden-Harris administration. Biden decision on future expected in coming days as Harris is considered heir apparent. So what is it? Is she the successor or is she not? Will there be an open convention or will there not be? Or will the Democrats go all in for Joe Biden, hoping that everything will be okay? Or worst case scenario, hey, just when you thought she was gone, here comes Hill Dog. Well-connected Democratic Party insiders say they expect President Biden to make a major announcement about his future soon after the Republican National Convention concludes in Milwaukee, which was last night. Trumpomania is running wild, and that congressional leaders expect Vice President Harris will become their nominee for president if Biden drops his re-election bid. Just a side note, her polling during these 4 years of the Biden-Harris administration has been absolutely abysmal. Biden polls higher than Kamala. People don't like Kamala. Democrats, liberals, vote blue no matter who. I know you're all for inclusivity. Hey, who doesn't like that? I know you're all for uplifting people. Who doesn't like that? But no matter what you do, it seems to me that everybody in this country, guys and gals, young and old, boomers, Xers, millennials, Gen Z, no matter who they worship or the color of their skin, everybody in this inclusive big group does not like Kamala. She's universally hated amongst everyone. Everyone. Guys, gals, everybody. I can't control that. Neither can you. She's a terrible choice. She was from the very beginning, and she will remain one all the way to the very end. The talk among high-level Democrat strategists and donors has now turned to who is best positioned to serve as Harris's running mate. And the short list has been boiled down to Senator Mark Kelly, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, California Governor Gavin Newsom, and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer have each communicated to senior party leaders that they would not be interested in serving as Harris's running mate, according to a person familiar with the candidates in the mix to join Harris atop the ticket. Oh, my goodness. Biden has come under intense pressure from party leaders, including former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Senate Leader Chucky Boy Schumer, and White House Democratic Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who have told the president directly that a majority of Democratic senators and a large number of House members don't think he could beat former President Trump. He can't do it. He can't keep it up.
Until he says otherwise, he is the nominee. And that's why you saw people close to his campaign and close to him come out so forcefully yesterday saying, hold up, we need to give him the space. He's in this, basically back off. Because the other thing that's happening here, Willie, is there's a lot of resentment that's building up and among the people closest to the president. Resentment for the way that he is being treated by some of the party's leadership, specifically former President Obama, former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and and Chuck Schumer, saying that their silence in all of this feels like a bit of a betrayal, but also the leaks that they're seeing. And so what one person described this to us as is, in one word, sad.
That's the way Trump would say it. Sad, very sad, because here's an article from RT. And look, I think I've matured a little bit, because if this was presented to me maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I really would have been a big old prick about this. But I'm feasting, liberals. I'm feasting on your souls, and I'm drinking your tears, because Democrats postpone Biden nomination process. What is going on, Democrats? It's confusion. Hey, folks, let's have democracy in the chat. Type 1 for Kit. It's just a solid plan. You'll see, and the Democrats are going to win. Type 1 if you believe that. Type 2, man, I don't know what's going on, and I don't care. Do you care if Biden's going to be the nominee? Type 2 if you don't care. I wonder how many 2s will get in the chat. And no, I'm not rigging this, but I got to be clear here, folks. I love this, because in the year 2020, we heard from so many smug liberals that Biden had this in the bag. There was also talk about Biden being a one-term president, but then you heard a lot of liberals saying, oh, he could do a second term. He could do it. He could do it. And now this is what you're stuck with. You made this choice. And people like, see, and Bernie Sanders, that cuck. Oh, my goodness. Well, he decided to go all in for his good friend Joe. Cowards, the whole lot of you. So the U.S. Democratic Party has significantly delayed its candidate nomination process for the 2024 presidential election. A virtual roll call to nominate President Joe Biden as the Democrats' 2024 candidate, which was scheduled for the coming week, will now happen sometime in August, the party has announced. The Democratic National Committee was supposed to meet on Friday and finalize the rules for the procedure. First proposed in May to ensure ballot access. In recent days, however, some party members have objected to rushing the process before the convention. None of this will be rushed, said Leah Donnie and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, leaders of the DNC Rules Committee, in a letter seen by CBS News. Sent to 186 members of the committee on Wednesday, the letter confirms that no voting will begin before August 1st, but votes that the virtual roll call will still happen before the in-person Democratic National Convention starts on August 19th. Meeting state ballot deadlines and avoiding potential lawsuits is the driving reason for conducting a virtual voting process, the letter added. The roll call is a traditional procedure by which state delegations deliver primary votes to the nominee at the convention. The Republicans did so on Monday, arranging for former President Donald Trump's children to announce the Florida votes that officially made him the party's pick in November. Dozens of House Democrats had circulated a draft letter earlier this week opposing the virtual vote, arguing that it would stifle debate, undermine morale and party unity, and foreclose any changes to the ticket at the worst possible time. They don't have a plan. They don't have a plan at all. They're in full-blown panic. Will he or won't he? Who will succeed him? Who will be pointed out? What's going to happen? Now, we here, Hard Lens Media, we're going to be covering the DNC convention. It's going to be a clown show. It's going to be a joke. As I've covered on this show, as I showed on yesterday's live stream, the DNC convention, they're displacing and moving homeless people out of one shelter and moving homeless people into another shelter. They're trying to make the United Center McCormick Place look presentable and respectable, but you could put so much shiny paint and put in so much air freshener, and you still won't remove the shite stain that is the Democratic Party. I can't wait to see this all implode, Democrats. I'm going to grab some Chicago-style popcorn, and all my fantastic friends in independent media are going to be there to watch the entire circus.